Hello, dear friends. Hardly anyone dares to talk about their high-strung nerves, like a lizard's tail, but communication is a way to relieve stress and end up laughing at ourselves, because life is laughter. Love. You can't live with so much poison, as Shakira sings. The word anxiety reminds me of the Nat King Cole song I danced to in my youth. Other people's legs are shaking like las ketchup from ascension. Opinion piece. Wave of anxiety. There is fear of the future. The news is scary. Symptoms of ascension. We live in a toxic environment. We are chemically stressed. It is a reflection of disharmony. The world is not made to calm us down. Let's start. The world has a problem of anxiety, which is a state of neurosis, agitation, restlessness, or uneasiness of mood that doesn't allow calmness. Anguish, uneasiness, restlessness, uncertainty, anxiety, and worry accompany a human being in need of tranquility and serenity. Serenissimo or Serenissima was the treatment of princes, sons of kings, and was also given as an honorary title to some republics, such as that of Venice, because serenity has always been considered a great virtue. It means to live peacefully, calmly, and without physical or moral disturbance. Anxiety, from the Latin anxietas, meaning anguish or distress, is a natural defense mechanism of the organism against external or internal stimuli that are perceived by the individual as threatening or dangerous, and is accompanied by an unpleasant feeling or somatic symptoms of tension. It is a warning signal that warns of impending danger and allows the person to take the necessary measures to deal with a threat. Anxiety has become a chronic problem in the world. According to Antonia Biamish, a kinesiology practitioner based in the UK, perhaps it is something that has become a trend that fills the pockets of corporate and personal brands. Perhaps past generations suffered anxiety, but suffered in silence. Or perhaps it is our environment now that is creating a population so riddled with anxiety. This world is not designed to calm the nervous system. It is a world designed to shatter it. The rising tide of depression and anxiety indicates that these types of mental disorders are not necessarily just that, an illness, but also a symptom of a number of social issues in today's world. Unmistakable signs are often sleep problems, appetite disturbance, constant headaches, emotional fatigue, etc. Adaptive or non-pathological anxiety is a normal feeling or emotional state in certain situations and constitutes a habitual response to different stressful daily situations. Therefore, a certain degree of anxiety would even be desirable for the normal management of environmental demands. It is only when it exceeds a certain intensity, imbalance of the normal anxiety response systems, or when the adaptive capacity between the individual and the environment is exceeded, that anxiety becomes pathological, causing significant discomfort with physical, psychological, and behavioral symptoms, most of the time very non-specific. ascension symptoms. But what most people don't know is that anxiety is part of the many symptoms of ascension, as long as you are not paralyzed by fear, because with fear you don't ascend anywhere, rather you descend. The most important thing you can do to prepare yourself is to release all fear, as fear will prevent you from receiving these new frequencies of light that are flooding our planet. The final ascension event will cause the Earth to transform into a new planet, and on the day of the event many people will experience symptoms such as an intense anxiety, hot flashes, dry mouth, rashes, extreme fatigue, cold hands and feet, nausea, sore throat, headache, dizziness, dehydration, increased colds, ringing in the ears, etc. Many people are already feeling these symptoms without having arrived on the famous day of the event, which indicates that this process is more gradual than sudden. I am not going to help alleviate these symptoms with my news summary, because the world is a frightening hiccup, but you have to know the problems in order to protect yourself from them and survive the storm. Fear of the future. Anxiety is a fear of the future that negatively affects health. There is this fear of the future because of financial worries, the state of the world or health, or it is accumulated emotions from the past, whether anger, resentment, or sadness. A balanced mind that is harmonious tends to be very present and rarely gets carried away by past regrets of future worries. However, most of us tend to swing like a pendulum between the past and the future, and very rarely dwell on the present. The world is finally understanding that talking about how we feel is a powerful way to release stress and trauma from the body. We don't need to hide in shame, afraid to show our supposed imperfections that makes us human. However, the rising tide of anxiety cannot be attributed solely to coming out of the shadows after years in the shadows. Anxiety is a reflection of disharmony within. Anxiety is characterized by a prolonged and excessive preoccupation with life's circumstances. It tiptoes along the what-if line of uncertainties. Everything balances on the razor's edge of fear that colors our thoughts, words, and actions. It is a full-body physical sensation, but when people think of anxiety, they seem to think that it comes from their mind and their mind alone. But the mind and the body are one unit. There is no separation between them. They are one energy field, constantly communicating our state of being to the energy field surrounding our body. Therefore, anxiety is indicative of an imbalance of or disharmony at the physical, emotional, and energetic levels that manifests in both mind and body as one. Toxic environment. People are chronically stressed because of the environment in which we all live. An environment that is toxic on many levels. We are chemically stressed like never before because of the amount of toxins that have infiltrated every area of our lives. From what we put in our mouths, what we spray, what we put on our skin, as well as everything we don't know that still manages to enter our bodies and wreak havoc on our internal systems. We are bombarded with electromagnetic stress, glued to screens and bathing in the blinking blue lights of internet connections, all of which disturbs a delicate bioenergetic field around us, taking us away from nature, which is the natural antidote to stress. We are saturated with fear, chaos, and stress by news, television, radio, social media, and fashionable gossip. We exist in a culture that says we can have it all and then overwhelms and paralyzes us with choices. We are constantly connected to all forms of communication. There is no escape, no respite from the information that hits up. It is an exhausting environment to live in that is filled with constant noise. Rumors of war. First, Russia announces final offensive on Mariupol and Ukraine asks to evacuate Donbas. Second, Ukrainian Marines surrender en masse in Mariupol. Third, nationalists set fire to a Ukrainian military ship in the port of Mariupol. Fourth, the explosion of a chemical plant in Ukraine sends a toxic cloud toward locals. This is called a deliberate chemical attack. 5. Ukraine civilians caught in the crossfire of war. 6. Thousands of freight wagons stuck at Ukraine's border as war affects exports. 7. West works to disrupt Ukrainian peace talks. Buchas set up seeks to torpedo negotiations with Ukraine, says Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. 8. European Union and US prepare sanctions against Putin's daughters Maria Butina and Katerina Tikhonova, neither of whom has ever worked for the government or any sanctioned company. 9. The New York Times confirms the authenticity of a video of Ukrainian soldiers massacring captured Russian servicemen. 10. The head of a Ukrainian paramilitary unit claims to have ordered not to take any Russians as prisoners, in quotes. 11. Fox News removes from an interview with Zelensky his answer to a question about the Azov battalion. 12. Russia accuses Ukraine of backtracking on peace talks. 13. The road to Ukraine began with the 1999 Kosovo War. Russia. United Nations General Assembly suspends Russia from the Human Rights Council. The resolution was passed with 93 countries voting in favor, 24 against, and 58 abstentions. Second, Moscow pays its foreign debt in rubles for the first time. Third, the US prevented the Russian government from paying its sovereign debt holders more than $600 million from reserves held in US banks. However, to Western banks and financial institutions, the Ministry of Finance promptly paid in gold-backed Russian rubles. Fourth, the ruble is stronger than before the Ukraine crisis. The Russian currency is trading at a 6-week high. 5. The ruble has climbed back to where it was before the war, extending its recent recovery to trade as high as more than 74 per dollar in early Moscow trading on Thursday. 6. Russia faces most difficult situation in 3 decades, Prime Minister says. 7. Kremlin sets timetable for Russia's economic recovery. At least 6 months are needed to offset the impact of sanctions. 8. Maldives Islands host yachts of sanctioned Russian billionaires. Asia. First, something is cooking in Thailand, as 5 banks will be closed for maintenance over the weekend and the next few days. Second, a Turkish court holds the Khashoggi trial and transfers it to Saudi Arabia. Third, India says its focus is on stabilizing economic ties with Russia despite sanctions. 4. US threatens India against more explicit strategic rapprochement with Russia, threatens significant and long-term consequences. 5. Russia's decline means China's rise. 6. Washington threatens China with sanctions in case of aggression against Taiwan. Europe. First, Poland and the Baltic states close the only land route to Kaliningrad. Russia calls this a cause for war. Second, European Parliament approves total energy ban on Russia. The resolution is not binding and may not be complied with by some gas-dependent states. Third, the European Union pushes for more sanctions, and Russia wants that it will take them to court. Fourth, the US cannot replace Russian coal supplies to Europe. 5. Macron defends dialogue with Russia. Continuing talks with Moscow can help build a new architecture of peace, in quotes, the French president said. 6. Sterling hits nearly 2-week high against weakening euro. 7. Royal Navy hit by massive fuel theft. More than $327,000 worth of diesel was stolen from an ambitious assault ship, HMS Bulwark, The Sun reported Wednesday. 8. Italian judge sends 59 people to trial over Genoa bridge collapse. 9. Italy takes advantage of Spain's crisis with Algeria and wants to take its place. 10. Europe has brought 35 billion euros worth of energy from Moscow since the war began. 11. Hungary says it is ready to pay for Russian gas in rubles. 12. European Union initiates procedure to block funds to Hungary for violating the rule of law. 13. Russian gas flows to Europe fall in line with lower customer demand. 14. Europe is hooked on Russian gas. The European Union imports about 30% of its oil and 40% of its gas from Russia and pays Moscow about $850 million a day to maintain the flow of hydrocarbons. Winning Europe off Russia would be a challenge. 15th, cooperation and solidarity between countries would secure gas in Europe if Russia were to cut off supplies. 16. The European Union donates 67 million more in aid against food crisis in Sahel and Chad. Spain. First, the IBEX 35 breaks away from Europe and reaches 8,600 thanks to renewables and electricity. Second, the Bank of Spain downgrades growth for 2022 to 4.5% due to the war. Third, transport strike figures: 86 truck drivers arrested and 561 reported. 4. Brussels takes Spain to the tribunals for not updating the telecommunications regulations. Americas. Chile will support the UNESCO nomination of the torture center of the Argentinian dictatorship. Second, the Brazilian real and the Mexican peso rebound, a shot in the arm for Santander, BBVA, and Telefónica. Third, the mayor of Bogota says that crime and terrorism threaten the city. Fourth, Argentina rejects a recognized Malvinas stand at a well-traveled market in Brazil. Markets. First, bankers' central bank warns of an era of inflation ahead. Bank for International Settlements urges regulators to prepare for changing environment. Second, Wall Street closes in the red on Thursday, and the Dow Jones loses 0.42% on Fed plans. Third, the Fed is leaning toward more aggressive rate hikes in the coming months. 4. Fed must inflict more losses, in quotes, on stock market investors to control inflation, says former central banker. 5. Fed officials' speech sent markets tumbling. Fed Governor Lael Brainard spooked markets Tuesday with hawkish comment. He spoke of the need to reduce inflation and suggested the Fed would tighten monetary policy quickly. 6. Rates may still need to rise 300 basis points. St. Louis Fed President James Ballard suggests the central bank may need to raise interest rates to around 3.5% to counter inflation that is too high. 7. Home buyer beware. Wall Street predicts a spate of big interest rate hikes just as mortgage costs begin to soar. 8. Oil recovers after falling to a 3-week low. 9. Solar, wind and diesel. European companies arm themselves in the energy crisis. 10. The stock market is behaving as it did during the Iraq War. 11. Stocks open lower as bond stocks threat driving sell-off. 12. JP Morgan says ready for a 40% rally in commodities on market turnaround. 13. Student loans not working as a way to finance higher education, argues one expert. 14th. Amazon contracts 83 space launches to deploy its satellite network. 15. Populism explodes around the world as resistance to the Great Reset accelerates. Cryptocurrencies. First, Bitcoin price falls below key level. Second, billionaire Mike Novogratz still believes Bitcoin will reach $500,000. Third, Cardano cryptocurrency retreats more than 3% in 24 hours. 4. Ethereum may hit $10,000 by the end of the year. Supply crisis. First, Europe's plan to ban Russian coal raises prices. Restrictions threaten global supply. Second, US natural gas price tops $6. Third, diesel and jet fuel markets shaken by war. 4. Coal falls 0.57% after soaring on EU veto on Russian imports. 5. French Foreign Minister Jean-Yves Le Drian said that the European Union must accept the prospect that war in Ukraine could lead to an extremely serious global food crisis. 6. Germany. It is announced that food prices in German supermarkets will soon increase by 20 to 50%. 7. Biden recently acknowledged that food shortages will be real, and now his administration is openly using the word famine to describe what is coming. 8. The head of BlackRock wants that it will be the first time this generation will go to the store and not be able to get what they want. 9. Since the last year, prices of some fertilizers have increased 300%. 10. Many farmers in Africa will not be able to pay for fertilizers this year, and this is expected to reduce agricultural production by an amount capable of feeding 100 million people. 11. China's agriculture minister said its winter wheat crop would be the worst in history. 12. The US winter wheat crop will be catastrophic due to severe drought. 13. The head of the United Nations Global Food Program says that the planet is facing now is unlike anything we have seen since World War II. And that's all for today. Thanks a lot, dear friends.